Okay, so let's start by warming up by multiplying the monomial times the binomial trinomials that are here. So this would give you a times 3a is 3a squared, and a times 7 is 7a. Here, minus 2m times m squared is minus 2m to the third. Minus 2m times 6m is minus 12m squared. Minus 2m times negative m, or sorry, negative 1 is plus 2m. And then for this next one, we'd have 4x to the fifth y, and then negative 8x to the third y squared. Okay, so that was just a little warm-up practice. Next, in the notes here, it basically is talking about the simplest form versus factored form. Basically, you take an expression like 4a squared plus 8a, and that looks a lot like some of the polynomials above, in the sense that it can be factored. It can be, there's a greatest common factor in both these terms. First, if I look at the coefficients, I can pull out a 4. I can factor out a 4. And that leaves me with a 1a squared and a 2a. But not only can I pull out the 4, I can pull out an a. They have that in common as well. And so that leaves me with a plus 2. Okay, that's the factored form. So this is basically called looking for the GCF, or the greatest common factor, first, looking for the things that they have in common. Polynomials that cannot be factored are called prime. And think about that in terms of prime numbers. When you talk about a number like, let's say 16, we know the factors are 1 and 16, 2 and 8, 4 and 4. But a number like 17 is prime because the only factors are 1 and itself. So when you're thinking about something that cannot be factored, it would be called prime because it doesn't have multiple factors. Okay. There are several methods of factoring, and it's going to take probably the rest of this week and maybe even in the beginning of next week to really cover them all. And they're going to be easily confused, but I'm going to do my best to introduce them to you in a methodical, organized way. But it's incumbent upon you to practice them. So, the approach does depend on the polynomial. But the very first step you must, you will hear me say this over and over, is to look for the greatest common factor. You will make your life so much easier if you pull out any common factors first. Then, if it's factorable after that, factor it after that. Okay. Steps for factoring a GCF polynomial. Check the coefficients, just like we did above. Then look at the variables, looking for duplicates, right? If a variable is present in all terms, take the one with the smallest exponent. Then divide each term by the GCF, leave the remaining factors in the parentheses, and check your work by distributing. Factor each polynomial, check your work by distributing, and then if a polynomial cannot be factored, just write the word prime. So looking in the first one here, the first binomial, what do these two terms have in common? Well, they're both divisible by 3. I can pull out a 3. Do they both have the same variable? No, they don't. So I can't factor out an x, but I can factor out a 3, which leaves me with 1x and plus 4. Okay, let's look at this next one. What do they both have in common? Well, they both have a 7 in common, but they both don't have the y in common. So if I factor out a 7, I divide 7y divided by 7, and I get 1y left. And then I take negative 7 divided by 7, and I get negative 1. Well, could I pull out a -7 and leave myself with -y plus 1? Yes, I could, but remember our discussion from yesterday. You really want to leave your variables positive if at all possible. Okay, next we're going to pull out what? What did this expression, what do these two terms have in common? Well, they're both divisible by 4. 8 does not go into 36, but 4 goes into 8 and 36, leaving a 2m and a 9n. And at that point, they're no longer factorable. How about number 4? Well, they're both divisible by 5. And there's no y term in the y variable in the first term, and there's no x in the second term, so that's it. So that leaves me with x plus 6y. And again, we can always check our work by redistributing. 3x plus 12, 7y minus 7, 8m plus 36n, 5x plus 30y. And as long as what I'm getting here matches what I started with, I know that that what I got for factoring was correct. All right, so I would like you guys to go ahead and work numbers 5 all the way down to the end of the sheet through 24. And I'm having you guys do something new called, well, actually I may have had you guys do this before. You put it into Go Formative. If you get the green light, you've got it right. If you get the red light, return. Look to see if you can find any sort of mathematical error. Once you've accomplished both those things, there will be a quizzes for you to take. And if you pass that with an 80% or better, you're ready to go on to the next level.